A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K. Hello, welcome to the A2theK Wrestling Show. We are talking AEW's All Out, our reactions, the results. What a weekend it was.
What a pay-per-view this was, man.
What a fucking pay-per-view this was.
Right.
Expletives already coming out.
I'm just going to quickly say this, Carl. Let's go straight into a tangent, right? But I'm referring back to something you mentioned earlier. And by earlier, I mean, if you haven't seen it, guys, This Week in Wrestling, right? And you mentioned about the storytelling elements, especially with WWE. And to me, this pay-per-view is the very sort of, this is the perfect example of how storytelling can pan out, because everything here hit because it's been fleshed out. Mm-hmm. This landed so fucking brilliantly, and we'll talk about all the different highlights. And maybe, I don't know if we've got any, but just for me, this is fantastic. And I know people try and even come at AEW for this with the long-term storytelling, but essentially this is what's happened. Like, we've had everything built up perfectly, and I was invested in pretty much every fucking thing that happened here. And look what we ended up with. Fucking brilliant pay-per-view. Best pay-per-view of the year.
Oh,
that's right. I fucking said it.
I wonder what the ratings will be. So let us kick off talking about some highlights from the pay-per-view. As Anthony said, what a pay-per-view. What a pay-per-view it was. Like this one right here. Holy shit. Like, was this the best match of the year? Yes. Was it the best match I've seen of, at least the last few years? Yes. It was so good. Anyone who hates the Young Bucks need to just get over themselves, because they were fantastic in this, and the Lucha Brothers, oh my god. Like, the whole thing was fantastic. It was...
Honestly, I was one of those people. I wasn't a fan of the Young Bucks, if I'm honest, but that's exactly what they wanted. They were playing obnoxious characters, and I'm clearly a mark. I bought into it. But this, like you say, this is a match that you can watch and go, this is why they are so popular right here. This is why people fucking love them all over Japan. Here, this way.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely tuning into Jim Cornette, because this was a spot fest. It was a, let's set him up and have him, fucking super kick party, everything was very much a spot fest. But not in a bad way, I don't think. The storytelling was there. It was intense. There was, shenanigans, but not too many shenanigans. There was everything about it was just so good. Like, it's mad, really. I think this was only I think it probably only lasted about 20 something minutes, and I felt like I was just lost in it for well over half an hour, 40 minutes. It was just an absolute clinic. It shows that tag team wrestling, when done right, can be fantastic. We saw this, to some degree with Santana and Ortiz versus FTR, but this was a whole different level. A lot of people still seem to prefer the BUCHS versus Kenny and Hangman. I don't know. This one was definitely on par for me, if not slightly better. I'm going to have to watch them both back, but
I've always found the Lucha Brothers impressive, but something in the last few weeks, I'm just enjoying them more and more, and I was so ready for the win. So I was totally on board with this, and I prefer this, and it might just be because obviously this is what I'm more hyped about right now. It'd be hard to look back on the other one and have the same feeling. Do you know what I mean? So I'll probably always favour this one just because this is the most recent, and I'm a goldfish, right? But the Lucha Brothers were so fucking impressive in this as well. So hands down, I think it's the best one.
I mean, it literally had everything.
This right here had everything.
There was false finishes. There was dives off the top of the cage. There was tag team moves. There was silly shenanigans.
Thumbtack covered trainers. It was just
yeah, exactly. It was just honestly so good. If you haven't seen this match, just go and watch it, because it was phenomenal. And it was definitely the match of the pay-per-view. Match of the year, definitely.
Indeed. That was me. I kid, of course. So, Carl, I'm going to try and be fair with this one. I'm going to come out. This is a highlight, but I'm going to have it slightly negative a little bit as well, but not majorly, because I'll go as far as to say I have never seen a bad battle royal in my life, because they're always fucking fun. I still I'm a big fan of the setup. This whole casino thing, it's a little bit different and it's fun, right? And obviously, amazing we got to see Ruby Soho, or the former Ruby Riott, make her debut as the Joker, as the wild card, or whatever you want to call it. And absolutely fantastic. And obviously, I don't know how you feel about the decision, Carl, but her taking the win, right decision made, I think, because they're going to push her massively, and I think it's only fair to do so. Naturally, and I'll say it because, I think you expect it of me at this point, Carl, but Thunder Rosa looked fucking brilliant in this, as did many others, to be honest, but it just really shows you how good the women's roster, and I think we touched on it before when we were talking This Week in Wrestling, but it just really points out how good the women's roster is getting in AEW. And for again, I've probably said this before, but the fact that they reacted to the poor roster and the comments they were getting about that roster, and they've done their utmost to improve that, I think it's fantastic. They listen, and they try and deliver, and this proves that they try and deliver. The only negative I'll mention, and it's not a big one at all, this is definitely a highlight, it was definitely a banger of a match, or a battle royal, is there were certain spots where the pacing was a little bit off. And I think it's only fair to say that, but again, that is honestly something you expect in a battle royal as well, because there's so many moving parts and sometimes it doesn't feel as fluid as it should. And that's just me trying to be fair and trying to, point out something that I'm not going to sit here and go, it was totally perfect all the time. But at the same time, nothing but great. And yeah, what a fantastic debut. Nice shock surprise there. I don't know if we're going to get any others, but fucking brilliant. And let's face it, like, in one essentially small part of a battle royal with so many moving parts, they've made Ruby look like a bigger star than she ever did in WWE. They made her such a big deal, and I think that was such a good thing to do, because she can be such a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. Thunder had an absolute, clinic of a battle royal. I thought she was the MVP of the whole thing. There was a couple of pacing issues, as you say. I think it's hard to introduce 5 people at once, every few minutes. And I think it's like there was a couple of times where we were trying to figure out what suit it was, but then all of a sudden, before we found out the suit, the entrance music and videos of the participants started playing, and it's like, well, why do we even need to know the suits? We don't know ahead of time who's what suit. So there's a couple of things there that could be improved, but no, I thought, all in all, I said before, the depth of the women's roster in AEW right now is phenomenal. I think AEW has got a deeper roster than WWE in terms of variety, in terms of gimmick, in terms of there's something for everybody.
It's like, because I was saying, like, when Ruby was a free agent, that they need to sign Ruby. Yeah, like they need to carry on building their because she is, again, she's not just another person who has a very similar gimmick to someone. She is a totally unique character in and of herself. So she is definitely a brilliant signing for them.
Yeah, and I think it's mad, really, because I think we both had pegged Thunder to win this. I
think that was my prediction, actually.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense that she didn't, because we know there's history there with her and Britt, and I think it needs to naturally come back around, as opposed to her just winning the battle royal. So the fact Ruby's come in, I don't think Ruby's going to dethrone Britt, but I think it's going to be some stiff competition. But I think
that's the thing. I think it's going to be enough to showcase what Ruby can do. Yeah, and I think that's exactly what she needs. So it's the right move. Definitely the right move. And like you say, the Thunder thing, I like that they're taking the time over it. She come in as the NWA Women's Champion. We had champion versus champion, obviously, and there was a point when you go, she could have been, AEW, and it's almost like that thing that she needs to achieve. So to achieve it too quickly, I think, would be probably not the right move. So I'm glad that they're not having it like, she's won this and she's going to go straight into title contention. No, I think, like I say, let's build it. Long-term storytelling, I think they call it.
They do. The kids these days, that's what they call it. Ruby Soho is all elite, which is a wonderful thing. Speaking of wonderful things, CM Punk returns to in-ring action after 7 years, and I fucking loved it. I loved every minute of it. The match itself, so delivered beyond my expectations. 7 years out of the ring is no small amount of time, and I think the way they planned out this match, the psychology behind it all,
That's the brilliant thing. Like, there was so much worry about Punk's sort of ring rust, as they call it, and like you say, they did pretty much everything to prove that is not the case.
Yeah, right? No, like he looked like he hadn't missed a beat, and I think the way that they planned out the match made so much sense. It's come to light that he clearly studied the Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid match from.
I was amazed. You sent me that earlier today, and I was amazed at that. That is a level of attention that they've paid. That went totally over my head without you sending me.
Yeah,
but those little nods were fucking brilliant.
Literally, there was there was definitely one, maybe two that I was like, oh, okay, I see what they did there. Like, with the hip toss, I was like, okay, that's Bret 1-2-3 Kid. But the amount of callbacks and throwbacks to that match, I had no idea. And they're clearly
beautifully done. Beautifully done.
And it made so much sense as well. We know that CM Punk is a massive Bret Hart fan, and
who isn't? I mean, let's face it, Bret is a legend. I saw something, not to go on a tangent. I saw something the other day. I can't even remember who. Apologies to the people I follow on social media, because I never credit you, because I always forget who it was. But they put up about the amount of people that Bret's put over in his career to the amount of people that Shawn Michaels has put over in his career, and I think Shawn's was sat at 0. But it's such a true thing. It's like Bret was all about elevating people as well, which is absolute testament to the man in the business, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who votes Shawn higher than Bret, yeah, you're not for me. I'm just gonna say that right now. You clearly don't know wrestling. But yeah, so this match was so good, so much better than I thought. It was, Darby was still able to go about and do what he does and do what he does best. Them like bursts of speed and energy, and the dives out the ring and stuff like that. Like, he got all of his shit in, but it was just a much more slower paced, methodical ring psychology kind of match, and it was. But
even
fantastic.
that is it's still kind of good in ring storytelling, isn't it? Because clearly Punk weren't going to let him control the pace of the match, so he slowed it down to his pace and elements like that. It's like, well, that just makes he's the veteran and he's controlling what's going on. It just made sense. I don't know, the whole thing fucking worked brilliantly, and the pair of them delivered. And I love the fact that they didn't come at it like we hate each other. It was like respect. It was respect all around.
Yeah, it was all about the respect.
I think Punk has actually since talked after the fact that the whole handshake with him and Sting wasn't sort of planned, and that was for him, that was a moment. It's one of the. I think how did he equate it? He said it was like a bucket list moment, but he doesn't really know. He didn't know it was going to be on his bucket list, but there's definitely a bucket list moment kind of thing, because he remembers Sting as we all do, but he remembers Sting as a kid, and now he's shaking hands with the man and getting that sort of respect, and it's it's fucking cool, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
three generations of wrestling in the ring there.
I mean, it is that is a fantastic way of looking at it, and I think obviously for Sting to go out of his way, him and Punk never crossed paths, and I think Sting has come out and said that he would have loved to have worked with him. So to have that kind of endorsement from Sting is obviously huge for Punk, but to have that endorsement from CM Punk for Darby Allin, spoilers, for Darby Allin is a whole thing for him as well. I know you've had your ups and downs with Darby, and it's understandable. A lot. You look at our recent TikTok video, you can see he's a polarizing figure, right? But for me, he is fast becoming one of my favorite AEW stars. I think he has just got everything. He is. You look at him and you just know that he could be a fucking star. Honestly, to a degree, he already is.
It's hard to argue. There was just I just feel like an old man. I'm sat there I don't get it. This skateboarding kid, I don't get it. Why is he wearing tights and shorts at the same time? What's going on with this guy? And I feel like this fuddy-duddy old man who's complaining about the kids of these days. And the bottom line of it is, like you say, you've seen it in him. Clearly, indoors. Let's look at it again. Sting, an absolute legend, and CM Punk, almost let's say a modern day legend, if you will. Two different generations of wrestling, both looking and seeing something in Darby, and they both know the wrestling business like the back of their hand. And I feel like or certainly from my perspective, I'm starting to see what they can see in him.
Yeah,
because he is a really talented guy. In all fairness,
no, he is, and I think that in itself is a huge moment for Darby, for Punk to come back and say, okay, the first guy I'm going to trust to be back in the ring with after 7 years is Darby Allin. Like that adds a lot of pressure, but I don't think Darby felt any of it. He was excellent the whole match.
You have to have that belief that he was going to deliver as well. You know, like you say, there's that pressure there because that's a match that everyone was going to be watching. You know,
I mean, people were talking about this almost like you would do like an Undertaker match at WrestleMania. It's like, should it go on last? Like, this is what the pay-per-view is built around. It's in Chicago. It's Punk's return. Like, is this the key moment? I'm glad they didn't, because I always think that the world title should go on last, because that's the ultimate prize.
Yeah, it's the respect for the title. To be honest, that's something WWE bugs me with, because it's like that to me feels like you're not respecting your own title when you do that.
Yeah.
They get a bit messy now because they've got a million fucking titles, but nevertheless.
Yeah. But no, like, honestly, I think they went all out with this, pun intended. Yeah, fantastic. Delivered beyond expectations. Great to have Punk back, and great, you know, Darby's got such a bright future world champ.
Totally agree. So, Carl, let's talk about probably the biggest highlight, like, as a whole. We have a lot to talk about. This is a point I'm going to make, and then we have a lot we need to talk about. But essentially, Omega versus Christian.
Yeah.
Right? Not only was the match fantastic, and not only is Omega proven once again that whilst we have our ups and downs with him as a heel and an obnoxious character, he is a fantastic heel. And then what do we get? Right? We get this fantastic little swerve after the match. Omega proving his points. He wins. It was exactly as it was going to go. I love the sort of nod, like, basically there was the only people who could ever have beat him are either not here or dead. And then it's like, okay, we're leading to something here. Something's going to happen here. And what do we get? We get Adam Cole rocking up. Oh, shit. Right, it's all going to kick off.
But I mean, straight away, I think everybody expected Bryan, right?
Yes.
Everybody.
I love the sweat. Do you know what, though? Like, I was surprisingly hyped to see Adam Cole. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but, like, I wasn't massively bothered whether he signed with AEW, if I'm being completely honest, right? But then he rocks up. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome. And I don't even know, like, I don't know how they did that to me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. And then obviously we get the swerve, don't we? And obviously, you know, he super kicks Jungle Boy. I couldn't remember which one for a sec. Super kicks Jungle Boy, makes it clear his allegiance is with the Elite. So he's part of the Elite. Just lovely little comedic moment with him and the Young Bucks. You know, we're getting further. Like, essentially, a lot of people are proper hyped that the OG Bullet Club is slowly coming back together, which is something that and it's certainly not been on mainstream TV for a long time, as it's been massive in Japan, but not on this scale in America. So fantastic to see. And then, Carl, what did we get after that? Because obviously this is a big point, so I'll do most of the talking. So what did we get after that, Carl? We got exactly what we wanted.
Exactly what we wanted. You know, Flight of the Valkyries kicked off. Bryan Danielson is all Elite.
Fucking boss little remix of Flight of the Valkyries as well.
Yeah, do you know what? It was so good. I think everybody was expecting to come back with a Final Countdown or whatever it was that he used in Ring of Honor. So I'm glad that they kept, you know, part of Flight of the Valkyries, but, you know, did a little bit of a remix with it. And I think, you know, him coming back, you know, he wasn't doing the yes stuff. I think it's clear that he wants to move away from that, but he came back still super over, super, you know, like the fans were fucking loving it, and came back, and, you know, he's on the good side. You've had Adam Cole come back as a big swerve on, you know, the heel side, and then, you know, how do you combat that? You have Bryan Danielson come into the mix, and, you know, shit just got real. Like, you know, the talent in that company is insane, especially over like the last 2 months. You know, they had a fantastic roster anyway, and like you've added over the last few months, you've added, you know, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Malachi Black, Adam Cole, you know, fucking Ruby Soho. Who else?
The thing is, a lot of people like to jump on shit like this. Like, you can get into this argument for days. Like, a lot of people like to jump on this whole, like, oh yeah, they're just hiring ex-WWE people. All their homegrown talents are getting overlooked, etc. And again, I'll apologize because this isn't a point I've made. It's a point I'm paraphrasing from someone else. But this is how you get people over. They need the attention on the product, and the attention on the product comes from people like Daniel Bryan, like CM Punk, even like Adam Cole to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. It comes from names that are known to get people's eyes on the product, and they are the people who need to elevate the younger talent. You can't build the product on Like, all due respect to him, as much as we've said he's been fantastic since he's come into AEW and as a heel, you can't build a product around MJF because no one's fucking heard of him. That's why he needed to feud with the likes of Jericho. Like, that's how it works, isn't it? So having these people in to build the new stars up is exactly what you fucking need, and absolutely perfect.
And for me, like, the funny thing is with it all is everyone's saying, oh, they've got too many people now, the roster is too stacked. Like, when has that ever been a thing? Like, you look, one of the fucking matches I was hyped for on this pay-per-view never happened, and that was Pac versus Andrade El Idolo, and that was one that I couldn't wait to see, right? That didn't happen, and the pay-per-view was still awesome. We didn't have Malachi Black on the pay-per-view. You know, he's an...
Here's the funny thing.
Like,
the trouble is, and I'm not saying this is WWE's fault, but people have forgotten, like, how wrestling used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how often you used to see Hulk? Or if you go further back than the Hulk, right? How often you used to actually see them, like, on a weekly program?
Yeah.
Like, they would turn up to be the big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So everyone expects now that all these people have to be seen every week and all these people have to be seen in every pay-per-view and constantly on your screen or you'll forget about them. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't have to work like that.
And that's
just
how...
because all these people are on the roster doesn't mean we have to see them all the time. Funnily enough, they might appreciate having a break.
Yeah. You know, that's how you end up...
Sorry.
I was going to say, that's how you end up with the stat that I sent you the other day of, like, the amount of rematches. Is because when you've got a roster in WWE that is, like, it's still quite toppy, but you just have the same guys going on every week against each other every week. You know, why would you care anymore? It's like, how do you build up a big main event? Because you've seen it 6 or 7 times on Raw by the time they book it for Mania. That's the problem, right? All out.
The two built on, and again, this is not me trying to come at WWE too much, but the two built on trying to sell merch, and they try and sell merch by constantly having the person in your face.
Yeah.
Right? That worked with Cena week in, week out, and the kids loved him, and everyone was buying his merch, and it worked. But the bottom line is, it's even better in a health point of view for the wrestlers, isn't it, to not have to be there all the time.
And I think
there's a nice stacked roster there, so we can space it out a little. We don't need to introduce a 3-4 hour show. We have maybe I'd happily have another hour of Rampage. I'll be honest with that, but. We've got enough show there and enough stories going on, and it doesn't have to be everyone there every week. And I don't think that's a problem at all.
No, not like. I mean, you've got people like Hangman who's out as well at the minute. You know what I mean? Like, the roster is fucking super stacked, but they don't have to be forced down our throats every week, and everyone's coming at it like, oh, there's too many factions because that's what they have to do to get everyone on telly. Well, no, it's that's not the case. Like, Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson hasn't come in and joined the Jurassic Express. Like, he might be teaming with them, but
nor is Christian Cage for that matter.
Well, exactly. Like, that's not the solution. But the thing about All Out is, I think there was 2 rematches on that show, and it was Lucha Brothers versus Young Bucks, which we saw either at last year's All Out or last year's Double or Nothing.
Yeah, but it
was
over
a year ago, right? And it was the match of the night by far. It was fantastic, right? And we had Kenny Omega versus Christian. And that was a couple of weeks ago, but that was for the other title. Yeah. And it was, it didn't feel repetitive.
And it was part of the storytelling, to be honest.
Yeah. So
but it's like that, going back to what you were saying about Pac and Andrade, like, it hasn't, all right, it was a shame that we couldn't get it on this pay-per-view, and that was the original plan, but it hasn't detracted from the hype for that match. We're still going to be made up to see it when it comes off. So look at that, they were able to have a week off. And it wasn't a problem.
Yeah. No, it's like legitimately insane how good AEW is at the minute. And, anyone out there who is shitting on it needs to just look at themselves and just think, like, why are they being so pro WWE? Like, why can't you just have good wrestling? It doesn't matter. AEW are killing it right now. WWE are in a lull, right? And they have peaks and troughs. They always do. They always have over the years. There's always been super hot points, super low points. For me, they're in a massive funk at the minute. Like, it's not enjoyable. It's not good to watch. AEW is...
I know it's like... It's becoming more and more popular on the IWC now to be like, I just like wrestling. Why can't we all just like wrestling? Like, and I don't mind that mentality at all because I watch both products. More than both products when I can. but I definitely watch both AEW and WWE. I don't see the point in the rivalry. Well, I do see the point in the rivalry. I don't see the point in trying to pick one over the other. But now it's become a popular thought, believe it or not, Carl. Like, I don't know where these fuckers were a few weeks back, but now we've had All Out. There's tons of them. Like, I just like wrestling. It's like, you weren't saying that last week. But anyway, never mind. That is exactly the point. WWE having competition is hopefully what will pull them out of this lull, because they need to react. Like, and what I think is fantastic about this pay-per-view, and I don't know if you agree with this, Carl, but I certainly, this is my mentality on it now, is that if WWE, for whatever reason, did not see AEW as competition before this, then you could make an argument for it. I don't think you can make an argument for that anymore. After this pay-per-view, if they are not acknowledging them as competition, they are being fucking stupid. Well,
yeah, tune into the news this week to hear what the higher-ups in WWE think about these latest acquisitions. But
don't be wrong, there's always going to be people who come at it and go, well, they're $1 billion company and they pull in millions of viewers, and they're not a threat to them. It's like, they are a threat to them. They might not be able to topple them or anything yet, and I don't even want them to topple them. I just want them to help them to make WWE up their game.
Like that in itself.
You can't... Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that in itself is what's wrong today. Is people are either looking for WWE to put AEW out of business or for AEW to put WWE out of business. Why can't you just have 2 kick-ass wrestling shows that you just enjoy you know what I mean?
That's the funny thing.
Why is that so
big? Because like no one's there going, I want Impact and like to topple over anyone, right? They're just happy for Impact to exist now.
Well, that's it.
Right, on the scale that they are. For some reason, there has to be a victor out of AEW and WWE in a lot of people's minds, and that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah.
Some people are happier in AEW and some people are happier in WWE. I've said it before, there are people who are WWE guys, and I would never want to see in AEW because they're WWE guys.
No. We've said it before on the show, we would hate, WWE to go away because, we have the Rumble every year, we have WrestleMania every year. It's like tradition. It's something which will, Rumble to Mania every year for us is the most we're ever hyped. Take All Out of it, take, fucking Double or Nothing, whatever, away. That's peak wrestling season for us because
and that's why I've always said I've never seen a bad Royal Rumble, because even the bad ones are fucking brilliant.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think it's a good thing all around, and anyone who is so anti-AEW for just silly reasons, just enjoy it. Like, this is the best time in a long time for the wrestling industry. You've had Punk return, you've had fucking Bryan Danielson show up in AEW, you've got Malachi Black over there now for all you Aleister Black fanboys, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But this is the thing.
Adam Cole.
And this is what slightly disappoints me. Like, if people are still coming at this, like, oh, they're not competition for WWE, or if WWE themselves are believing that they're not competition, that upsets me, because they need to acknowledge that so that they start doing something. They need to react. You know what I mean?
I mean, the problem is, I don't think they will, because I legitimately don't think that they are competition. WWE sees themselves so much as sports entertainment now that a wrestling show is not any form of competition. They want to have Logan Paul come on. They want to have fucking Reginald doing backflips every 2 minutes. They don't. It's not a wrestling show. It is a variety show. It is like fucking WWE's Got Talent. That's what it is. There's a different act every segment.
Honestly, we'll give it long enough and there probably won't even be a wrestling ring there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we tried that with fucking Raw Underground, didn't we?
Let's remove the ropes.
Yeah.
So but we need to mention a couple of very minor shouts, Carl. But this pay-per-view absolutely killed it, and what a way to end it. And again, I'm somehow, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but I am somehow even hyped to have Adam Cole there, which I honestly didn't. I was like, yeah, okay, it'd be kind of cool.
I mean, we'll talk about in the news what WWE's offer was to Adam Cole and what the plans were going to be if he came over to the main roster, which might explain why it was so easy for him to join AEW. But yeah, I've always said I never saw Adam Cole going up to the main roster in WWE because he's not the right fit for that company. He just isn't, right?
Well, I think this is the thing, and it must almost be an admission on WWE's part, because very recently they said about they're not going to be signing indie talent.
No.
They're basically going to try and make them themselves now again. And I think this is the thing, WWE, they're not Adam Cole people. No. And Adam Cole is most likely going to be happier where he is, because WWE don't. That's not what they want. They don't.
No.
Vince has never really been a fan of his sort of that sort of size and stature of a wrestler.
No. WWE is a circus. They want massive, variety acts like the world's, like Omos. Look at the size of him. You know what I mean?
Or and it's not an unfair
Reginald. He's a fucking acrobat.
Go as far back as you like. You've got the likes of Andre the Giant, and that they've always wanted that spectacle.
Yeah.
So
of course
it's just like you say. It's just in its very nature.
Yeah. So they're two very different products. So they probably don't see them as competition. I think WWE today is so very. This is what Mick Foley was saying in that little thing he posted today on his social medias.
I thought you didn't have anything to say.
Well, yeah, that's weird. That inside joke.
Sorry,
but yeah, he's right. WWE today is not the same as the company he was in all them years ago that, formed the Mankind character and the gimmick and, helped his character progress into the hardcore legend that he is today. It's not that company anymore. It's now a company that is full of writers who know nothing about wrestling. They are TV writers, and they are trying to put on, variety stuff for a population who is sat on the phone most of the time and peering over it to see what's going on and go, that's it, right? So It's a very different world. This isn't WWE versus WCW. This isn't even WWE versus TNA back in the day. And so the comparisons can stop. It's not the same.
I totally agree. In fact, the proof's kind of in what they're doing to NXT now. Whilst we're not fully sure what's happening, just looking at the aesthetic they're going for, the NXT has been the closest thing to a pro wrestling product that WWE's had in a while, and they now want to change that and make it more like the other two, and that says a lot, doesn't it? Because, like you say, they want it to be more of a variety show. They want it to be less like AEW.
Yeah,
and it's a shame, but it is what it is. How do we get onto this? All Out was great.
All Out was great. Yeah, full of surprises, full of awesome matches. I think we've only got one shite for the whole pay-per-view to talk about.
And this was bound to happen, this one. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised what this is.
Yeah, does not come as a surprise. As expected, it was Paul White versus QT Marshall, and nothing against Paul White, nothing against QT, really. I just think we always knew this was going to be just pointless, and we were right. I don't think he belongs in there, Paul, at this point in time. Probably even QT as well. No offence to either of them. QT is a fantastic trainer. He should stick to that. Paul White is done. And it's nice that he wanted to be back in the ring, and it's nice to see him, but he looked like he was in pain. He couldn't really move around too much. It just wasn't the right place.
I think that's the thing. You give him the respect and even let him have the match because he wanted to have another go in the ring. But like you say, he's clearly.
For me, you give him that go in the ring. You don't put him in there with QT Marshall, right? I said last week, and a couple of weeks ago as well, that I would be completely down for Paul White versus Shaq. That's a variety match, that I would want to see in AEW because it makes sense. The story's there, the history's there. I would be all over that. It wouldn't be a great match. Honestly, of course, it wouldn't.
It was a really odd decision. It's like Paul White wants to get back in the ring, and they choose QT Marshall. I still don't really understand that decision, but
no,
that's what they went for.
Yeah, but I just think the whole thing just felt pointless. It didn't belong on the show. The positioning on the card as well to go on before the main event seemed really weird.
I don't know. I'll give credit to the positioning because I feel like we'd come off a big match and then we were going into a big match. I feel like it was a nice breather, to be honest.
Yeah,
this was the for lack of a more eloquent way of putting it, this was the piss break, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, it was, but I feel like sometimes it's almost jarring to go from excellent match to just. And it's like, if you look at that from an excitement graph.
I don't think the intent was to go as low as this match. And that's no disrespect, but this, I think they maybe wanted this to be a better match than it was.
I mean,
it's only not good by our. Some people might have loved it. I don't know, but certainly for us, I don't think it was a very good one.
The fact is, this was not a pay-per-view match. It probably would have only just scraped being on Dark. And that's the reality of it. Paul White is a megastar. Love the guy. He's contributed so much to the business. QT is QT. don't really want to
He
see
likes
on my
apples.
screen ever. Anyway, but yeah, this did not feel like a pay-per-view match, and it felt just so jarring to go from, you know, the quality that we'd seen up to that point to this thing that happened. So,
No, I agree.
so yeah, that was All Out.
The only O'Shite we had.
The only O'Shite. For me, I'm going in strong with this one. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Sorry,
I'm going in. Brandy. Yeah, it's getting a 4.5 for me. I think it was fucking fantastic. Up and down the card, it was so good. I was so close to giving it a 5, to be honest, but there was just one or two minor things which just, bugged me a little bit too much. Like, you know, we didn't discuss it as an O'Shite, but like, I'm not super into the Jon Moxley's New Japan Revolution that he's on. Like, cool, we get it. You want to wrestle some people, but I have no vested interest in it. So that's cool and all, but
yeah,
you know,
I
the
think
match
it's
was
fair
fine.
what you're doing there. I don't think it deserves to be an O'Shite because it's something that we don't particularly get. I'm sure some people are proper fucking buzzing on that. So I think it's fair that it doesn't necessarily have to be an O'Shite. Just not our cup of tea.
Of course, we're British, and we can say that. So yeah, 4.5 from me, Anthony. What would you score?
I need to totally agree with you again, Carl. It's one of them very agreeable weeks. This was fantastic.
Look at that. I transitioned just in time for you to do that then. That was good.
Nice.
That was good.
It's perfect. No, 4.5. It was so close to a perfect pay-per-view here. I nearly had no gripes at all. Obviously, I mentioned the couple of minor issues I had in terms of the pacing of the Battle Royal at times. Obviously, neither of us were a big fan of the Paul White match, the QT Marshall match. But overall, fantastic fucking night. And deserves 4.5 all day long.
Yeah, I think it was a monumental night in the wrestling business. Like, there's been so many people talking about this show, the fallout, the surprises. I think it's going to be so exciting now to tune into Dynamite and see where they all go. Like, Punk and Darby's obviously done.
Also,
where does Punk go?
A slight sidebar as well. Did you catch the after interview with Bryan?
Yeah, I saw that, the media scrum.
He said about, I just wanted to reference it because he said about like Punk's come in and he said about wanting to help push younger talent and stuff like that.
He just wants to kick people's heads off.
I'm here to kick the fucking heads.
Yeah.
I fucking love it.
Well, I mean, it's true. I think, you know, for Bryan, his circumstances are very different to Punk's. You know, Punk had time off. He was done with wrestling. He was burned out. He felt he was no longer a professional wrestler anymore. He was a sports entertainer. He was done. And he wants to come back now because of the amount of talent and he wants to help them. Bryan has had a really tough decision because he loved working with WWE. You know, they were bending over backwards to keep him, which is, you know, that's another misconception with AEW. People think it's just a place for people that WWE don't want anymore to go to, you know, come home to roost kind of thing. But, you know, WWE wanted Bryan. They did everything they could to keep Bryan. And this is a culture shift in itself to have him, you know, make the decision to go there.
That was one of the reveals as well, surprisingly, that they actually had agreed for him to do some work in New Japan. They weren't against that as an idea, and it still wasn't enough to keep him, so it says a lot, that really.
No, it does. But yeah, you know, I'm so excited now to see what happens next for all of them. Like Punk, you know, where does he go after Darby? You've obviously got Adam Cole come in, and you've got Bryan going up against potentially Kenny Omega or Cole, but, you know, there is a plethora of exciting matches now to make. You know,
that's the thing. There's so many different matchups you can make with both Bryan, Punk, and even Adam Cole. There's so many different things you could do there. And to be honest, Adam Cole being involved in the Elite and what they're doing at the minute, that is actually interesting stuff for me. And I mean, what's going to topple the Elite? What's actually, where's that going to go? Now they're just bolstering their ranks.
There's like, you know, there's stuff there that they can then go on a mission. Like now that Young Bucks have lost the titles, well, Cole's going to go after Miro for the TNT title, for example. That's a whole different feud that we've never seen before. You know, Young Bucks might want to try and reclaim it. And we have another banger with the Lucha Brothers and stuff. And, you know, it's all about the Elite now and how they kind of keep control because there's now outside interference to what was, you know, their plan. So, you know, I imagine Punk and Bryan could team up at some point. Like, there's just so many things that could happen. And I don't know what direction they're going to go. And that's what you want to see on your telly, you know, every week, isn't it? That is what's going to draw you in because, like Raw next week, we know exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be some weird, thing with Randy Orton and MVP, and then Riddle and Lashley.
This tickled me, because somebody actually put up about basically these dudes said and obviously on Raw we're going to get Charlotte versus Nia or something like that, and then someone put a comment after Raw saying, "What you called that one?" It's yeah, because it's so fucking predictable.
Of course it is, because to that point there's so many rematches and stuff, and it's now that AEW's got such an even more stacked roster than they had, how do they still they're going to still keep it so fresh because there's so many people, but we're not we're not going to have rematches honestly, all the time, but there's so many different combinations.
So stacked. I do not envy the task of whoever it is deciding those cards now, because there's just so much you can do, and so much that people probably want to see that isn't going to happen just yet. Yeah. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of storytelling to be done, and so you can. And it's fantastic for us, but from a booking point of view, that must be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, and obviously the end goal for Omega is him and Hangman. But now you've got Adam Cole come into the mix. You've got to imagine there's going to be something set up with some kind of kicking Kenny Omega out the Elite, because they've got history there. Adam Cole and Kenny in New Japan, and how that all went down. So you imagine that
it actually makes a bit of sense when he goes in there as their mate, and then essentially usurps Omega.
Exactly. So, there's so many different ways to go. We've got Ruby Soho now coming in to go after Britt Baker. Where's Thunder Rosa going to go next? Malachi Black wasn't even on the card. What's going to go on with him and Cody and the Nightmare Factory? And
a lot of people really want Malachi and CM Punk at some point. So are we going to see that come up?
Yeah, literally the combinations are endless, aren't they? And I think that's what's so exciting about it. And I know for a fact that they're going to tease us to the point where we're not going to see a lot of this stuff for a long time, but in the best way, because obviously they could just, completely splurge on it and just give us a Dynamite that has got everyone's dream matchups. But why? They're going to make us wait, and they're going to build it up, and it's going to make sense. So, yeah, I'm excited.
And what a perfect time for Jericho to have some time off, because is anyone even going to notice right now?
Well, exactly.
Slink away, do this fuzzy stuff, and we'll probably be like, oh yeah.
Well, exactly. So, I don't know how they're going to handle that as well. Obviously, he's still a competitor, which is obviously a good thing. But is he going to show up again to say that even though he's won, he feels confident he's going to step away for a bit, or how are they going to handle that?
I honestly don't think. I think it's just going to. We're not going to see him for a few weeks now. I think that's just how it's going to go. I don't think they're going to make a big thing of it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose where does MJF go from this now as well? There's that's what's so good, is there's a culmination now of many a month's worth of stories. So it's what's next? It feels like we're going to almost hit a reset button now, and there's going to be a whole new.
This is one of the things I think we said at the beginning of this. This paid off so well because it was the culmination of such long-term storytelling, to the point that, like you say, it's essentially a reset now.
Yeah,
because they've paid off so many different things.
Yeah. And it's it's mad, isn't it?
Even who's going to surprise us now? All the speculated debuts have turned up as well on one pay-per-view.
Well, there's still the likes of Bray Wyatt and stuff. You never know.
No, we're not getting Bray. I'm going to call that now. We're not getting Bray.
I don't think we will either. But if we do, then I'm going to be all in for it. Definitely. Fun. But again, you've got the likes of Moxley, who's just kind of, he's a main event guy, but he's just kind of fluttering around in some Japanese feuds and stuff at the minute. So it's mad the level of talent they've got who are main event caliber. So I feel like we're going to have a really strong upper mid card, main event scene, and the undercard is there as well.
So I could be wrong on this, but I think it's a good idea. So hence the suspicion. They obviously have a good working relationship with NWA and Impact, and I think the best thing for NWA to do with the women's tag team titles, now they've been reintroduced at Empower, is to actually include a bit of women's tag team work on both Impact and Dynamite.
Yeah,
I think we might see that,
That would make a lot of sense. I think they are starting to build up a few tag teams.
Team TJ, haven't we, straight away?
Yeah.
Now, possibility, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
It could work. You've paired up Penelope Ford and the Bunny as well recently.
Well, obviously there's something there. I know Britt's the champ, but obviously there's something there with Britt, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel as well.
So you could have Hater and Rebel. You could have, you know, a lot of stuff. So yeah, I think it would make sense to do something like that. Yeah, like up and down the card, it's absolutely stacked, and I can't wait to see what they do. Like every level of the card you look at, there's exciting stuff that could happen. So I think the fact that they are hitting like a hard reset, it seems now, in terms of storyline and where they go. You know, I am like, there's people like Lance Archer and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I keep forgetting, and I you know, a name will pop into my head, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah. Like, if we need to just like look at the roster and almost do like our own, like, you know, tier ranking, just to see like how stacked it really is. It's mad.
Yeah, could be. It might be a fun little project at some point for us to have a segment where we look at the feuds we'd like to see, because there's such a big roster there now, so many options.
Yeah, I'm down for that. So yeah, hell of a pay-per-view, potentially AEW's best pay-per-view they've ever put on. 4.5s all round from being Anthony, and yeah, we were all in on All Out. I think it was a fantastic show. I can't wait to see what they do next, and obviously the build up to Full Gear in a few months' time. So yeah, thanks for tuning in to this segment. Let us know what you thought about All Out. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Right, were you about that right there? Were you a huge fan of Paul White and QT Marshall? Was it you? Were you the one fan they did that for? Let us know in the comments.
Did you enjoy what you got?
Are you entertained? Because we weren't. But no, I think excellent show, excellent, you know, time to be an AEW fan, and I think we can all agree we can't wait to see what happens next, and that's all you can want from a wrestling show. So yeah, awesome pay-per-view, and we will be back to talk all the latest news and rumours in the Ringside Report after some words from these wonderful people.
You're watching or listening
to A to the K.
The A to the K. A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K.
These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.